Have you ever wondered how one person can transform from being one of the strongest opponents of a message into one of its greatest defenders, and then become a leader whose name remains respected more than 14 centuries later? What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that true greatness is never measured by wealth, power, or military victories alone, but by unwavering faith, justice, humility, and complete devotion to Allah. Among the remarkable figures who proved this timeless truth stands Umar ibn Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him, the second Caliph of Islam, whose extraordinary journey continues to inspire millions across the world. His life was not shaped by comfort or privilege, but by difficult choices, sincere repentance, fearless determination, and an unmatched commitment to establishing justice among people. Long before he became one of the closest companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, Umar was known in Mecca for his powerful personality, physical strength, sharp intelligence, and firm character. He belonged to the respected Quraysh tribe and possessed qualities that naturally made people listen whenever he spoke. Yet those same qualities initially led him to oppose the message of Islam because he believed it threatened the traditions and unity of his people. However, Allah guides whom He wills, and the heart that once resisted the truth was destined to become one of its greatest protectors. His acceptance of Islam marked one of the most significant turning points in early Islamic history, strengthening the Muslim community at a time when believers faced severe persecution and constant hardship. From that moment forward, Umar dedicated every part of his life to serving Allah and supporting His messenger with absolute sincerity. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that sincere faith has the power to transform even the strongest hearts, replacing pride with humility, anger with wisdom, and fear with courage. Umar's transformation was not merely a personal change, but the beginning of a legacy that would shape the future of the Muslim Ummah for generations. He stood beside Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, during some of the most challenging moments in Islamic history, witnessing sacrifices, migrations, victories, and difficult tests that strengthened the believers and established Islam across Arabia. Every experience deepened his understanding of responsibility and accountability before Allah. Rather than seeking personal honor, Umar learned that leadership was a trust carrying enormous weight before the Creator. These lessons prepared him for responsibilities far greater than anyone could have imagined. Although countless challenges still lay ahead, destiny was quietly preparing Umar ibn Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him, for a role that would test every quality he possessed, and the greatest chapters of his remarkable story were only beginning to unfold with trials that would forever change the course of Islamic history. The passing of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, brought one of the greatest tests the Muslim community had ever faced, and after the leadership of Abu Bakr As-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, came to an end, the immense responsibility of guiding the Ummah was entrusted to Umar ibn Khattab. May Allah be pleased with him. He accepted this position not as a path to honor, but as a burden that demanded complete accountability before Allah. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that genuine leadership begins when a person fears the judgment of Allah more than the praise of people, and Umar lived every day according to this principle. His administration became known for justice that made no distinction between the powerful and the weak, the rich and the poor, or the noble and the ordinary citizen. He established an organized system of governance, appointed qualified governors, created a public treasury to serve the needs of society, strengthened the judicial system, and encouraged fairness in every decision. He regularly inspected the conditions of his people, often walking through the streets of Medina during the night to ensure that no family suffered from hunger, neglect, or injustice without his knowledge. His concern reached beyond words, for he believed that every individual under his care was a trust from Allah. History records many examples of his humility, showing that although vast territories came under Muslim rule during his caliphate, his personal lifestyle remained simple and free from luxury. He wore modest clothing, avoided unnecessary comfort, and reminded himself that worldly power was temporary while accountability before Allah was eternal. As the Islamic State expanded into regions of Persia, the Levant, Egypt, and beyond, the responsibilities placed upon his shoulders grew. The Levant, Egypt, and beyond, the responsibilities placed upon his shoulders grew heavier with every success. Victories brought opportunities, but they also introduced new challenges involving diverse communities, different cultures, economic management, and the fair treatment of millions of people living under Muslim governance. Every decision carried consequences that would affect generations, making wisdom and patience more valuable than military strength alone. Yet just as stability seemed to spread across the growing state, new trials quietly emerged beneath the surface. The greater the empire became, the greater the expectations placed upon its leader. Enemies watched carefully, internal pressures increased, and every judgment was examined by those who hoped for justice and those who searched for faults. Umar understood that even the smallest mistake by a ruler could affect countless lives, so he constantly sought guidance through prayer, consultation, and sincere reflection before making important decisions. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that the greatest leaders are tested most severely after achieving success, because maintaining justice requires greater strength than winning battles. The remarkable expansion of the Muslim world was only one part of Umar's legacy, while the true measure of his leadership remained his unwavering commitment to fairness, humility, accountability, and obedience to Allah. Even as unseen events were approaching that would place his faith, courage, and steadfast character through one final and unforgettable trial. The final chapter of Umar ibn Khattab's, may Allah be pleased with him, remarkable journey reminds every generation that the value of a leader is not measured by how long he rules, but by the lasting impact of his character, faith, and devotion to justice. Even as he carried the enormous responsibility of governing a rapidly expanding Islamic state, he never allowed authority to distance him from the ordinary people whose welfare had been entrusted to him by Allah. His heart remained humble, his conscience remained awake, and his greatest concern was always whether he had fulfilled his duty with honesty and sincerity. History records that his life eventually came to an end after he was fatally wounded while leading the believers in the far prayer, a moment that deeply saddened the Muslim community and marked the conclusion of one of the most influential periods in Islamic history. Yet although his earthly life ended, the principles he upheld continued to guide generations of Muslims across centuries and continents. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that sincere faith leaves behind a legacy far stronger than monuments, wealth, or worldly achievements. Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, demonstrated that justice is not merely a political ideal, but a sacred trust that begins with accountability before Allah and extends to every decision affecting his creation. His example teaches that courage must always be balanced with mercy, strength must always serve righteousness, and leadership must always remain connected to humility. His reforms in governance, administration, and public welfare influenced the development of Islamic civilization for generations, while his personal conduct became a timeless model for those entrusted with authority. Even today, leaders, scholars, and ordinary believers continue to study his life because they recognize that lasting success is built upon honesty, discipline, wisdom, and unwavering obedience to Allah rather than personal ambition. The challenges facing humanity may have changed over 14 centuries, but the qualities that create honorable leadership remain exactly the same. Every person carries some form of responsibility, whether within a family, a workplace, a community, or an entire nation. And the example of Umar reminds us that every responsibility is ultimately a trust that will be accounted for before Allah. His extraordinary journey from a determined opponent of Islam to one of its greatest protectors proves that sincere repentance and steadfast faith can transform both individuals and societies. His unwavering commitment to truth shows that real strength comes from submitting to Allah rather than seeking power for personal gain. What Islam's 1,400-year history says is that civilizations rise when justice, compassion, integrity, and faith guide those entrusted with leadership, and they decline when these values are neglected. The enduring legacy of Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, continues to inspire hearts, strengthen faith, and remind the world that true greatness belongs to those who dedicate their lives to serving Allah and benefiting humanity with justice, wisdom, humility, and unwavering righteousness. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.